remember there was the allegation that a former Israeli prime minister was accused
I
of...
wanted to talk to you about that actually,
Yeah,
because of course that former president was
what's his name?
equivalent Ehud Barak, I believe. He basically is part of the Labour government in Israel, equivalent of the Labour government,
So
and now
left-leaning.
left-leaning. Yeah, for those people not from the UK, it's like a Democrat equivalent. Whereas now they're run by the Conservative equivalent, which is slightly right-leaning, and it's basically the same as Republicans. Maybe not quite to the same extent, but it kind of to get a picture for all the viewers around the world. And they're basically using his image to basically say that he's involved in the Epstein case, that the people of Israel shouldn't be voting for his party, which is insane. I think, like, to be involving like that picture. And I know that in the UK we don't have this as much, but I know that in America we have it with Trump and Biden quite a lot, and I think it's quite similar in Israel as well, where parties say don't vote for the other party because they're doing this and that, whereas we don't really get that, and I don't think this should be happening.
I mean, I disagree, because there was a whole movement around the last UK election around don't vote for Labour because they're anti-Semitic. Have you just completely forgotten?
It wasn't an official thing from the Conservatives, though, was it? It wasn't like Theresa May or Boris Johnson turned up and went, "Oh, they're anti-Semitic." They're literally, from what it seems in the media, they just kind of get on and try and talk about their policies and what they're going to do, even though they don't do that very well. They don't, slag the other party off saying, "Oh, they're shit at this, they're shit at that." They might have a little heated discussion if they have a debate live on TV, but that doesn't happen very often. It only happens when they're literally about to get elected.
Well, no. Have you seen Prime Minister's Question Time? Are you?
I can't say that my life gets to that point. No, watch that.
Well, I've been off work the last week, so I've had a lot of time free.
Okay.
Basically, every Wednesday, the opposition leader and the opposition parties get a chance to actually, people from every party. What am I talking about? Get an opportunity to ask the Prime Minister certain questions about the running of the country, and it happens every week. And it starts off with the Prime Minister and the opposition leader like jousting off, almost. That's not the right word, but you get the idea that they kind of have exchanged these blows. And what's been happening recently is Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, has been asking really good questions of Boris Johnson, and Boris devolves to his usual and then he just throws an insult back at him, and it's not substantive at all. But anyway, Prime Minister's Question Times, it happens every week, and they constantly trade insults. Like, there was a Labour MP a couple of years ago, was fairly recently, who was thrown out of the House of Commons because he said, will Dirty Dave release his tax records or whatever, referring to Dave Cameron, because he was implied to be involved in the Panama... Oh, what was it called? Because Panama is a tax haven, and so people set up companies there, and then they move all their cash there to avoid tax.
Yeah. I've heard of the story that David Cameron, good old Dave,
Pig fucker Dave,
that he potentially tax evaded. So, without going too off topic, and whilst you're still in one bit, without you going to too many bits, and my point was that other countries around the world, where they're basically slagging each other off, they're doing it in a way that they're having those heated discussions. They're not doing it when they're campaigning. So when they're campaigning, it's turned out to be there, from what I've seen anyway, to be very similar in America, where they're saying, "Oh, we're crooked Hillary," or Sleepy Joe, and all those things.
Yeah.
Wherever Trump comes up with, I don't know, it changes every week. So it turned out to that, and I found it hilarious that, of course, the current Prime Minister in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, he's he's a great public speaker, but he's also a very, very shady man. So for him to be like, oh yeah, well, don't vote for the Labour equivalent party because that guy who's potentially involved in that case with Epstein basically affiliates himself with them. Don't do that because they're really shady. And I find that hilarious because both parties, they've gone so off topic now. And I know quite a few people in Israel, so I hear quite a lot of feedback on what they think about it all. It's gone so off topic that they're not actually talking about policies anymore. They're just basically slagging each other off on TV and saying, oh yeah, that party's shit. And then the other party saying, oh no, that party is shit. And it's turned out to be like, well, what are you actually doing? Who governs the country?
Well, this is the whole thing with the propaganda, what I've heard termed as the propaganda model and the media in general, because instead of talking about actual substantive issues that could be resolved, they'll talk about these bullshit issues that mean nothing. Like, think about cancel culture and how many people on the internet try and cancel because of vague things that they've done in the past that might be slightly offensive.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got all of this. So, and the media will just put all of these articles out there about cancel culture and how we're the bastions of free speech. And then when someone says slightly offensive, they'll turn around and say, that person's disgusting, that person needs to be cancelled, or whatever. And so they distract you with all these bullshit discussions over what's offensive and what's not, and what should be talked about and what shouldn't be, whilst avoiding the actual issues. And so the description that you've just given of Israeli politics sums up perfectly this stupid place that we're in, where we talk about some of these bullshit issues, which is why I'm not very keen to talk about them, whereas I am very keen to talk about Epstein and all this, because this is real stuff that is terrible and should be spoken about.
Yeah, and it's just media full stop, I think, is the problem, isn't it? Where it's become views now rather than facts. Where you've got one like the Sun and you've got the Independent, where they're completely different ends of the spectrum, and they'll say things that are just basically opinions. They're not actual facts, and that's where other people would get influenced by those opinions. And it's just like, well, it doesn't work that way. You need to read something, and you need to read something else, and then you need to read something else, and you almost need to read like 5 or 6 things to get an understanding of what is actually going on nowadays. It's not just I go and read the Times or the Economist. You know, they're quite central news outlets, I think, those two. But even then, you read them, and they're not really like, popular culture as such. They're more of what's going on around the world, in a very generic and not in such depth. So in those news outlets that are actually keeping up to date with the likes of Daily Mail as well, just an absolute bullshit news outlet where they're just putting out opinions. They've seen a few celebrities go out and jump into the sea, and then I don't know, for a bloke, he might have a boner whilst doing that, and they catch it, and they're like, oh, I don't know, whatever. John Smith has got has gotten excited by his fat girlfriend or something. Do you know what I mean? And it's body shaming, and then it's making the people feel worse when they haven't done anything. And it's like, well, what are you achieving out of it? And the viewers, the men look at it and like, he's got a small dick, mine's bigger than him. Or some will be like, oh shit, he's got a massive dick. And then they start being really self-conscious about things. You get my point, though. It wasn't the best explanation. Or it might have been a really good explanation. I don't know, but you get my point.
I get the point. It's just this constant circle of bullshit. That's the basic point you're making. They're just creating this cycle of bullshit. Oh fuck! I had a point that I was going to make. I've completely forgotten.
Everything's bullshit.
Everything is bullshit. Yeah, sorry, the internet was a bit dodgy for a second there, but it's all good now.
No, it's okay. As long as you heard me.
I
heard my rant. I think it was all worth it.
Absolutely, it's all recorded. Thank God. Imagine if we'd lost that. That would have been the end of the world. But, I remember what I was going to say now.
Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah, go on, sorry.
Okay,
Continue.
so I read an article on BuzzFeed, and it was about Dave Chappelle's, one of his stand-up. Because comedy is offensive, right? by nature, there are going to be certain people that are going to be offended by comedy. And Dave Chappelle, a black comedian, is inevitably going to talk about race, inevitably. And he spoke about race a fair bit in one of his specials. And you read the paragraphs. Look at what they start off with. I think, I feel, I thought. There's no objective discussion like interviewing experts. It's just personal feelings of offense. I'm personally offended by the fact that you get offended over a comedian, but I'm not here trying to cancel BuzzFeed. Although I think BuzzFeed's shit, I'm not trying to cancel them.
Well, BuzzFeed's trying to cancel most of this shit, aren't they?
Well, they tried to cancel half the planet in the first place.
They're not a news outlet. They're a blogging website where I feel, I think, whatever. It's not an I thing when you're providing news. It's a, this happened, this person said that, etc., etc., etc.
Exactly. Exactly. You have people who report on it and say, this happened, this happened, this happened. And you might have an opinion piece by somebody who says, okay, this is what I thought of this certain thing. But you know that it's an opinion piece. That's not reporting. Those are two different things.
That turns into a blog, though, not into a news outlet when you're providing your own opinion, no?
True. But then, but the idea is that reporting is using primary sources and saying, okay, this is what happened. And I may well be completely wrong on this. I have not studied journalism at all, but I believe that an opinion piece, in my mind, an opinion piece would be looking at those primary sources and drawing conclusions from those primary sources and then writing your thoughts in that column, as opposed to just taking secondary sources and just brain fart and just splurge a bunch of random thoughts on there that don't make any sense and try to cancel people. I may well be completely wrong.
I don't think you're too far off. I mean, I'm not an expert either, but it doesn't sound like it's a legit thing. Or maybe it is a legit thing and that's where we're heading. I don't know. But it just feels like with journalism being like everywhere else, it's a competitive market where you're not really getting paid much money. It's quite a lot of it's freelance. So people are trying to stand out a little bit more. And by standing out a little bit more, they think that their opinion is valued a little bit, adding value a little bit more to the piece of work that they're writing. Which, no offense to any journalist, any sort of opinion is utter bullshit. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. If someone's going to turn around to me and say my opinion is bullshit, that's fair enough, because it is to them. But my opinion to me is worth it. Other people's opinions are probably worth it to them, but to me, it's worthless, and I'll be straightforward to people like that.
Absolutely. Like you read Twitter now, and it's just an endless stream of people's opinions, which most likely equals bullshit. Which is why I deleted Twitter when I was like 15, because I just couldn't handle the constant stream of people's thoughts that I didn't really care about in the first place.
Exactly. I'm exactly the same as you. I had it for a few years, I think. And then when I was about 16, everyone was like, oh, yeah, this should happen. This shouldn't happen. And I think that's like, well, hang on a second. This is literally a prime social media site where you are influencing other people's opinions because of what you think. And I just went, no, I don't care enough about other people's opinions.
Exactly. Like you can refer to primary sources, you can refer to certain news outlets. That's all valid. But to just refer to some cunt on the internet that occasionally puts something witty out as a credible news source just doesn't work. Like I know that Twitter cancelled or deleted Katie Hopkins' account. They're a private company; they can do what they like, but it's not an issue of free speech at all. They're a private company; they can do what they like. But why were people following her in the first place? I don't know. Was she an editor before she got her massive following? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's this constant stream of you have to be controversial in order to stand out. and so your public profile will build off the back of that, and then you can monetize that, and
But
that's
that's
how
the
people
same
can make
reason.
their money.
Exactly. That's the same reason to why Donald Trump has become successful. It's the same reason to why Elon Musk is a very popular CEO. Be it he's running a very tight ship and he's doing good stuff with his company.
But
But
then
why is he so
also he has
popular?
built
Because,
very strong companies as well. But you're
yeah,
right that he does put funny tweets out.
I'm not saying that you've got other CEOs. Who's the CEO of Apple now? Do you even know?
Tim Cook, I think.
Okay, I didn't know that.
All right.
So, point being, who's the CEO of Google?
I don't have a clue.
Exactly. Why do you know Elon Musk? Because he does crazy shit, and that's controversial. That gets him more publicity. And same reason, as I said, Donald Trump is up there. Same reason as Piers Morgan's where he is. Same reason as
Katie Hopkins.
what's her name? You just mentioned Katie Hopkins. It's all about being controversial and triggering people, because then that way, that Karen, the 20-year-old Karen who gets triggered by flipping anything, and she sees someone tweet out saying my child's name is XEA12, whatever his child's name is. She's like, no, you can't name them that. Why can't he? It's his kid. He can do whatever he wants.
I think it's supposed to mean Kyle, isn't it? That kid's
I don't
name?
know what it's supposed to mean, but I don't care. So it doesn't matter. Why does it matter to a young Karen who's just going to evolve to be worse with her life?
And the thing is, the young Karen has blue hair, and she probably identifies as being pan gender.
Fucking microwave. That's what she probably identifies as.